Hooday to all the Bengal fans out there. Welcome to another episode of Gridiron Jungle, hosted by your two favorite Bengals fans. My name's Kyron, also known as Rich, here with my brother Philly Phil. Phil, how you doing today, man?
Yes, sir. Another stress-free weekend, no Bengal activity, but I'm repping. I got one chip this year, so I'm feeling pretty good today.
Just about to say, if you're not watching on YouTube, big shout out to the Ohio State Buckeyes. Shout out to our brother Corey. I know he's going to love hearing that. But shout out to the Ohio State Buckeyes for securing that national championship on Monday night against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They made it an interesting game towards the end. It really wasn't that close, but the Buckeyes get another ring. Ryan Day gets his championship, silences all the haters. The $20 million roster proved to be correct. And Jeremiah Smith was only a true freshman this year.
Man,
So
Caleb Downs, true sophomore.
yeah, so you still got some big pieces coming back. Also, a lot of young talent coming back. But as you know, this is not a college football podcast. We only talk about college football during the draft process.
Yes,
And this,
sir.
we haven't even had a draft process yet at the age of this podcast. So we're going to get right into it. We are here for the divisional round recap and the championship weekend preview. Had a good weekend of football. But before we get there, we do want to touch on Bengals news. Phil, I know you have a couple of items that we can go ahead and discuss. One being the surprise hire. And when I say surprise, I'm just mean nobody even knew that this was something that was going on.
Right.
We have a new offensive line coach and a new assistant offensive line coach. Who do we end up
Yes.
hiring, Phil?
Yes, sir. So, as the offensive line coach, they did hire Scott Peters, who has ties to the division. Previously worked with the Browns, worked very closely with offensive line guru Bill Callahan. So, if you know anything about offensive line player or offensive line coaches, Bill Callahan is definitely known as one of the best in the business, highly respected. And Scott Peters was the O-line coach for New England this past season, his only season there. Didn't fare too well, but kind of similar issues that the Bengals have faced. Just not a lot of talent on that O-line as a whole. Not really much depth. So, kind of a tough slate there. Maybe kind of difficult to hold that against him. And then you mentioned the assistant line coach. He's also bringing Michael McCarthy with him, not to be mistaken for Mike McCarthy. But he's spent a lot of time as an offensive line coach in both the NFL and college, and believe he played 7 seasons in the league. So a lot of experience there. These guys, Colin Card, is supposed to be developing young talent and getting the best out of the talent that they have. So I'm gonna keep an open mind to it. A lot of the people that co-signed it, from what I see, are the same people that like Pollock. So, you know, that could be a good thing. It could be more of the same. So I'm really interested to see how it plays out. Really interested to see what type of scheme they implement. I know previously they've liked the wide zone, which we've kind of moved away from. But I know they do like the same type of versatile, long-armed offensive lineman that the Bengals typically go for. So, maybe it'll be a good fit. I'm interested to see how it plays out, but I do think it is a very, very important hire. So we'll see how it goes.
No doubt, man. Scott Peters also has some NFL experience, played guard and center in the NFL. And I know one thing they mentioned about him was he had a mixed martial arts gym
Yeah.
in Arizona. So obviously the hand movement, that's not a new thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's been a lot of offensive linemen who use that kind of mixed martial art. Really, the whole emphasis is the hand motions, how to use your hand, pass blocking, run blocking, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, Willie Anderson, our Ring of Honor member, that low hand, high hand technique, not a new concept as I mentioned earlier, but it is going to be curious. As you mentioned, Browns ties, I believe he coached with the Patriots this past year.
Yep. Yep.
And I know there's been some gripes about the Patriots offensive line, but they just aren't talented either. So I don't take that into too much. I take that with a grain of salt. He did have a lot of talent in Cleveland, especially the year they won. Well, they didn't win the division, but they did make the wild card the year they lost to the Texans. I guess that was 2 years ago. Either way, Division Ties kind of knows this in and out. I don't know how to really say this other than Buddy still looks like he's in shape and could play in the NFL right now.
Nah, for sure.
Jacked up coach. I mean, so that's always good. So hopefully there's a lot of accountability that goes on. Obviously, he's going to have a real good. He's going to earn his paycheck by coaching these guards up. And obviously, we'll see what kind of offensive line we have all in all. But
Yeah.
I'm excited about the hire just to see. Anytime you shake it up, we'll see very quickly what's going to happen and what's not. I think we have improved over the years with our offensive line, or the past few years, should I say. But with that being said, it's still not to the level that we want in order to make sure that everything goes as planned. It's funny because I saw Dave Lapham say something about Cody Ford in his season. Tip
Yeah.
his hat off to him. Just
Yeah.
gonna leave that there.
Cody Ford was
Um,
getting a lot of love, man. I mean, he stepped up. I mean, he was asked to do a lot. That doesn't mean he did it well, but I get it. I get it.
yeah, man. You know what? We're all about positivity in 2025. It's a new season. Just gonna leave it right there, man. Shout out to Cody Ford. Also, speculation about what's going on with our defensive coordinator search. A lot of speculation ends with, hey, maybe we haven't announced anything because the guy we plan on hiring is still preparing for a national championship game, which just ended this past Monday. The
Yep.
defensive coordinator for the Irish, um, Golden, what's his first name?
Al Golden.
For some reason, when I thought about Notre Dame and I thought about Golden, I was going to say Golden Tate. Al Golden, I don't know why my brain just went there, but Al Golden, defensive coordinator for the Fighting Irish, interviewed with the Bengals already, if I'm not mistaken.
He's interviewing tomorrow, Wednesday. So when you hear
Okay.
this, he'll probably either be interviewing or have just recently interviewed. So
Okay, I got you. So we should be getting an announcement soon. What do you think about the potential defensive coordinator hire? Listen, there's a lot of things that need to be done, a lot of positions that need to be filled. But
mhm.
what are you looking for? And is there any kind of scheme or anything that you would like to see our defense run?
I mean, I mean, the thing I like about Al is that he's been very successful as a college head coach. He had a great run at Temple. Um, coached at Florida as the head coach. I mean, at the U at Miami. And he was in our building in 2020 and 2021 as our linebackers coach. And he played a huge part in that development of Logan Wilson, of Jermaine Pratt early in their career. So I do feel good about his ability to connect with and coach up young guys because our defense is going to be extremely young, extremely young. So that does give me encouragement, but at the same time, this is a retread. This is somebody that's been in the building. He was on Lou's staff. So how much different will the philosophy be? How much different will the implementation be? I don't know. His only experience really as a defensive coordinator, has been these 2 seasons at Notre Dame. I mean, he was a defensive coordinator early in the 2000s at Virginia, but that was 20 years ago. So it is going to be, I am interested to see how his scheme and how his tactics will translate to the NFL. Notre Dame had a wonderful season on defense. It was part of the reason why they only lost one game headed into the national championship. But at the same time, you see what I won't say undermanned defense, but a defense that was slightly overmatched, just didn't have enough firepower to keep up with a team like Ohio State. So it as much as I want to be encouraged by the potential hire, it's kind of hard for me to believe that the results are going to be better than what they were last season. So I do hope that he's able to get the players that he needs to be able to effectively run the heavy man concepts that he likes. Because I love teams that can just line up and play man. So it would be really exciting to be able to build that type of defense. But when you only got one guy that can really bring pressure, you can't really lean on a lot of man-to-man play because you're just asking the corners too much of your corners. So it'll be interesting to see, what his approach is there. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's my only concern when you were speaking. As dominant as Notre Dame's defense was, it is college and it is a lot of man, which you don't see a lot of in today's NFL. Not saying teams don't run it, just doesn't look as easy as he made it in Notre Dame.
And that's
So
facts.
I want to see what kind of scheme he kind of has in mind. My only concern would be that NFL experience. So of course he did coach. I mean, this going back to the '90s, the early '90s, he coached some high
Mhm,
school ball.
mhm.
Obviously, he coached a lot of college, a lot of different
A lot of
stops.
college, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of college. You know, linebacker coach. He even made a stand in Detroit as a tight end coach before moving on to the linebackers, which is kind of interesting because normally you don't see too many coaches go from the same in the same building and move from offensive side of the ball to the defensive side of the ball when it comes to a position. But he did play tight end, played tight end at
Mhm,
Penn State,
mhm.
and I think he had a year with the Patriots, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. So, like I said, my concern is running a defense is different than being on a staff. He was on Lou's staff, so he knows, and like I said, he's been with the Lions organization. He knows how these things work. He knows how to put together meetings and run meetings and uh, implement schemes and everything like that. So, you know, like anything else, we got to give it a chance. I
Mhm.
do find it interesting. It kind of falls under your belief of uh, I mean, honestly, there's just not really too many respected coaches. Not saying Al isn't respected. I don't want to say it like that. But high
Right.
end coaches that are going to come in and want to work for Zach Taylor. So you are going to have coaches such as Al Golden, maybe from the college ranks who come up and then work in the NFL, where it seems more like a promotion for them versus another established coach or another established DC in the NFL who wants to
Mhm.
come and work for the Bengals because you know, um, we all know what it's like when you feel like you can do your job better than your boss. Once again, we're all positive this year. This isn't Zach's slander. I'm just saying that's kind of what it is. There are coaches who have been head coaches and feel they've been better head coaches than what Zach has shown. And it might be hard to kind of fall in the pecking order um, when it comes to that. So we'll give Al a chance. We'll see what happens. I want to see how he adjusts, see what he does. Like you mentioned, it's going to be a young defense, so it makes sense in that
Mhm.
regard, kind of like coaching college to a certain degree. A lot of things that we got to talk about on the defensive side of ball that we'll discuss in the offseason. When I say offseason, I mean after this actual football season is over, we start getting the combine stuff. You know what's going to happen with Trey, the whole nine. So a lot of pieces to be filled, but this is the right direction just to know who's in the building and what's going on. Um, Also, we got what am I trying to say? A vote of confidence. I meant to say that when we talked about when we talked about Scott Peters, offensive
Yeah.
line coach, Orlando Brown kind of gave that he endorsed him as a new line coach.
I
So
saw Willie
always good when you
Anderson gave him an endorsement too, so
yeah, always good when you have a stellar offensive lineman, including the best on your team at the moment. Give that kind of praise to the new guy coming in. You want to see it as getting off to a right start. Um, Bengal stuff as far as everything else. We'll talk more about it as we get more news, and I'm sure they'll make an official hire, which we'll discuss next week. With all that stuff being said, let's move on to the actual divisional round of the playoffs that we had.
yes, sir.
Uh Interesting weekend of football to say the least.
I would say so.
Saturday, Saturday we had the Texans at the Chiefs, and we had the Commanders at the Lions. One big upset, allegedly, in that game. And then Sunday we have the Rams at the Eagles and the Ravens at the Bills. Ravens at Bills, probably the best game of the weekend. Let's go ahead and go in order, similar to what we did last weekend. Texans at Chiefs. Final score: Chiefs 23, Texans 14. A lot of talk about the 12th man on the field for the Chiefs.
Man,
12th,
12,
13th,
13.
14th,
There
15th,
you
all of
go.
that.
There you go.
Um, which are the referees. Phil, did you watch the entire game? What did you think about the officiating? And what do you think about the Chiefs moving on
Mhm.
to another AFC championship game?
Yeah, I
I
did
think
watch
Mahomes,
the
my fault. I think Mahomes is now 8-0 in divisional games.
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But go
I
ahead. I'm
did
sorry.
I did watch the game in its entirety, and despite it being low scoring, it was I thought a rather good game. I thought really every game this weekend was pretty good. Um, I mean, you said it. It was frustrating, you know. not necessarily rooting for the Texans, but rooting against the Chiefs and just seeing, just all the favoritism that they got. It was pretty egregious. I mean, your there wasn't that one glaring play, I don't feel like, that stood out like some of the Chiefs games that we've seen over the past season or two. But just all in all, it seemed like every single call that could have went one way or the other definitely was in favor of the Chiefs. I mean,
I gotta ask you a question. I'm sorry, I gotta ask
yeah.
you a question. I shout out to Big Sis, man. I was at my sister's baby shower on Saturday.
Hmm.
While they had it on, I wasn't watching it in its entirety. I just glanced here and there, kind of kept up with certain things, but not enough to really know what the flow of the game was. So explain something to me if you don't mind, Phil.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the overall stats for the game.
Yeah.
The Texans had 336 total yards of
Hmm.
offense.
Hmm.
The Chiefs had 212. The Texans
Hmm.
had the ball for 33 minutes and 26 seconds. The Chiefs had it for 26 minutes and
Yeah.
34 seconds. The Texans had 18 first downs to the Chiefs 14.
Yep.
The Texans had 65 plays compared to the Chiefs 50.
Yep.
Both had 9 drives in total, which is kind of odd. The Chiefs
Hmm.
outgained the Texans about 1 yard per play, 5.2 to 4.2. 187 passing yards for the Texans, 162 for the Chiefs. 149 rushing yards for the Texans, 50 in total for the Chiefs. The
Yeah.
big difference, and 0 turnovers for each team. So the
Exactly.
only thing that I see, 8 penalties for 82 yards and 4 penalties for 29 yards. I mean, I look at those total stats for the team.
Yeah.
I don't see how the Texans lost. What happened?
I mean, if I'm being honest, it was they weren't finishing drives. Both teams only punted twice. So, and you mentioned no turnovers, but Houston missed 2 field goals. They missed an extra point. I mean, that's 7 points right there that they left on the board. I mean, it was a 9
Fairborn
point.
missed 2 field goals, huh?
Yeah, he missed 2 field goals, and neither of them, I forget the length that they were. I know he made a 48-yarder, but the 2 that he missed weren't like anything crazy. They were field goals that you would expect him to make. And CJ Stroud getting sacked 8 times. It seemed like 5, 6 of those 8 sacks just came at like the absolute worst time that they could happen. But CJ didn't play bad. I mean, he threw for 245. Mixon ran for 88. He scored their lone touchdown, and I think he added another 12 receiving, so he had 100 yards from scrimmage. But he was really the him and Nico were like the only 2 bright spots, in that game. I thought the defense was sound, but they just couldn't force a turnover. They were only able to get 3 sacks on Mahomes, and you talked about them outgaining them 336 to 212. The Texans are the first team to outgain an opponent by 100 plus yards in the postseason, not turn the ball over and lose. Every other team that's done that 49-0 going into that game. So I think that says a lot about that referee situation, because I mean, like you said, you just look at the stats and Houston dominated that game. They truly dominated that game. For it to not be a one score game is kind of crazy, when you look at it.
That's what it is.
So
Yeah, that the fact that they lost by 9 is what's really kind of nuts to me.
yeah.
Um, Mahomes 177 yards passing, 117 of those went to Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
7 catches, 1 touchdown on
Yep.
8 targets. Um, we see how Travis Kelce looks throughout the season, but it looks like they are saving him up or have been saving him for the postseason. And at the end of the day, the Chiefs just know how to win. We talked about
Yep.
it over and over again.
Yep.
They just know how to win. So here we are. We'll talk more about them as we go on to we discuss the championship weekend. But that's just kind of where things stand in the NFL. And it's really becoming one of those things you look at and say, are they going back to the Super Bowl? We'll discuss
Right.
it more as we get into the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Saturday night,
I was gonna
another
say before
exciting.
before
Mhm.
we move to the next game, I just want to state I was on Houston plus 8.5, which got hooked there. You had Houston plus 5.5 first half, which did miss, but you were correct in Kansas City on the minus 8.5. They covered by the half point there. So just wanted to make sure I touched on that before we move to the next game. So.
No, I appreciate you keeping track of that. Let's move on to Saturday night in the D. The Commanders came and fooled on the Lions.
Whoa.
Came out with a victory. Yeah, swerved and hit them corners. Shout out to Jello who performed. 45-31. Only the second loss for the Lions all season. The Lions, I say, were genuinely stunned.
Yeah. I think they're still stunned.
Yeah. Jaden Daniels, rookie of the year, 22 for 31, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, was not sacked at all.
And he ran for another 51.
I was about to say, ran for another 51 yards. Dyami Brown, who has been ridiculed or called out, should I say, by Amon St. Brown about guys being drafted ahead of him. 6 catches, 98 yards. Definitely want to see somebody like that show up. You had McLaurin come with 4 catches, 87 yards, 1 touchdown. Phil, what were your overall thoughts on this game, man? Were you expecting Detroit to come in here and get the win? Or, excuse me, the Commanders come in and get the win?
Not at all. You know, we both had the Commanders covering, but we both had the Lions winning. I had the Lions not only going to the Super Bowl, but winning the Super Bowl. So I respect Jaden Daniels and this Commanders team. You know, they came to pay court and they laid it on us. So, we talk about it, I feel like almost every week now. You know, Jaden Daniels has been on a tear. I didn't expect him to continue to do this. I mean, they scored 31 points in the first half, and Detroit scored 31 in the game, So I didn't think that Detroit would be this stubborn defensively, facing Jaden Daniels. So it was kind of interesting to see them not really make those adjustments throughout the game and kind of continue to deploy the same tactics that just wasn't working. But at the end of the day, Goff throwing 3 interceptions and losing a fumble, I think was just too much to overcome for them.
He threw 4 of them, didn't he? No, Jameson Williams threw the other interception.
Yeah, Jameson with that. And right there, like Ben Johnson, what are you doing? Why would you? I mean, it's one thing to call a wide receiver pass, reverse pass, whatever, but to choose the most erratic receiver that you have on your team to make the pass is crazy. Like, I'm never putting the ball in Jameson Williams' hands to make that decision. As much as I love Jameson Williams, that was crazy.
Listen, the Lions have to be shooting themselves in the foot, or they did shoot themselves in the foot, but they have to be losing sleep when they look at the stat sheet and see 5 turnovers to 0.
Yeah.
Historic season like this, big-time season. Everybody was excited for Detroit. However, you cannot turn the ball over 5 times in the playoffs, regardless of who you are playing. It's not going to end well. 33 minutes and 59 seconds compared to 26:01 in favor of the Commanders. But other than that, Detroit kind of won every other category.
Yeah.
Outside of those turnovers. You take those turnovers away, even if you take 3 of them away and still leave them with 2-0, you still might have a scenario where Detroit's winning this game. But, man, they really deflated it. And Washington came in with a chip on their shoulder. Everybody was kind of crowning them. Shout out to Denny Green. If you want to crown them, then crown them. But they let him off the hook. And I just see, man, let's talk about it when we get to the NFC Championship game. I do have some thoughts on this Commander team.
Yeah.
They just find a way. Man. And Jaden Daniels, I'm telling you, the more I see him, the more I'm confident in him. The more I feel like in big game situations, he just doesn't rattle.
Yeah.
As we've been watching the AFC North, man, don't blink. My man, don't blink.
Not at all. Not at all. And
what were you about to say?
I was just gonna say, and thus far, Cliff Kingsbury has shown he may be a better OC than Shanahan thus far. If we're looking at it in a vacuum. So I'm interested.
At least right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see if he can continue to cook, and really looking forward to this championship matchup. Didn't expect us to have a NFC East championship game of all conferences. I mean, of all divisions. So, yeah.
Well,
looking forward
speaking
to
of
it.
that, perfect segue into our Sunday early game at the Rams on the road at the Eagles. Also, yeah, we already talked about what the spread in the game for the
Yeah, we
Lions
both
was.
had
With the,
Commanders
yeah.
with the points, which covered obviously, and we both had Lions money line, which was a big, big L there.
Well, Rams at Eagles. Eagles end up victorious 28-22 in a game that they almost gave the Rams. Rams
Man,
almost had a chance to walk out of there with a win as we were watching it and discussing it in real time. Not sure what the Rams are really thinking with trying to take these big plays in that type of weather condition. Obviously, there were some issues holding on to the ball. Kyron Williams had a big time fumble, maybe two if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
Um,
he had two.
yeah, two fumbles. Guys just had a hard time. I know Puka had some drops. Higby had some drops. Feels like they should have been running the ball more, maybe taking some early down, like some easy passes instead of some downfield shots.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just their game plan. That's what they ended up with. Saquon Barkley, the team wanted to look like the best running back in the NFL, had a 78-yard touchdown run as well as a 62-yard touchdown run to cap the game off. He rushed for 205 yards on 26 carries
Yeah.
and 2 touchdowns, which is insane in the playoffs and in that weather. Stafford had a great game, 26 to 44,
Mm-hmm.
324 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 sacks, however, for 33 yards. Jalen Hurts, was sacked for seven times
Yeah.
for 63. He only passed for 128 yards, but did rush for another 70. Averaged 10 yards a carry. Man, first and foremost, I think we both had the Eagles. No, I might have had the Rams covering.
Yeah, we both had Rams covering, and we both actually ended up taking Rams to win it.
Yeah, and it looked like that last possession, it probably was going to happen. However, it didn't. Got to tip my
Yeah.
hat to the Eagles in that regard. They ended up winning the game. What were your overall thoughts on this game as you watched it?
Yeah, I mean, it was this game I think was affected the most by the weather. It was an ugly, messy game for both. You know, you saw a lot of receivers trying to tippy toe, getting in and out of breaks, which caused a lot of miscommunication and some timing routes to be off a little bit, which I think, you know, even though Jalen has been struggling passing the ball, I think that played a part as well. But, you know, initially I just looked at it as a really dominant performance by Barkley, but you know, when you sit back and really look at it, and you mentioned the 78-yard run and the 62-yard, those two big long touchdowns, that was 140 of his 205 yards right there. So his other, you know, what, 24 carries went for 45 yards. So I mean, if you take away those two big plays, which were just really poor angles and poor tackling, you know, I thought all in all, the Rams defense did a solid job, you know, especially making the Eagles be one dimensional. They didn't have much success in the past game. So that was really a game that could have went either way. I thought Jared Verse played big time. You know, he backed up all the trash talking he was doing, but I thoroughly enjoyed this game, and you know, really would have liked to see the Rams pull it out just for my bet sakes, but you know, it was a really good game, and I enjoyed watching this one.
Yeah, man, it's kind of crazy when you got to love NFL football, playoff football. Sometimes you want to see these games on, in great weather.
Yeah.
Want to see them maybe in the dome just to kind of see the two best teams at their best
Yep.
play and really settle it. But that's part of the reason why you work so hard all season so you can have that home field advantage. And shout out to Howie for building the team that can be dominant in this type of weather. That's the one
Absolutely.
thing we mentioned when you look at teams. And shout out to Lombardi, new GM of the Carolina Tar Heels football program. But he always mentioned that about the Bears. Like the Bears are a team that play in Chicago, right by the lake,
Mm-hmm.
cold weather, but they're not built for like it. They're trying to be a finesse team when you got to be a dominant interior line. We're gonna push people around type of team.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a dome in Chicago. You're gonna be playing outdoors, and if you want to go where you plan on going, especially with your new head coach hire Ben Johnson, you better
Yeah.
be able to play some cold. You can't be running wide receiver sweep passes
Yeah.
in January in Chicago. That's
Yeah.
not going to work. It's not going to cut it. Not going to fly.
Mm.
So Yeah, man, I feel good. I'm listen. I don't really care about the Rams. You should probably know why, given that this is a Bengals podcast.
Facts.
But
Facts.
it is interesting to see what's going to happen with that team. A lot of talks about Cooper Rush. It feels like every year for the past couple of years
Cooper
they've been
Cup.
trying to. Yeah. I think I said Cooper, and I feel like they've been trying to write Matthew Stafford's obituary for the past couple of years as well. He's still a very good quarterback. Not sure how much longer he's going to play in the NFL, but I believe they got off to a slow start. But Sean McVay, of course, got him on the right track. It's a winnable division right now.
Mm-hmm.
Shanahan, the lure of Shanahan and the 49ers isn't as strong as it was. Seahawks seem to be on the come up. I like the Cardinals. Not the biggest fan of the coach, not because he can't coach. He just doesn't motivate me.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to motivate me, I guess. As long as they stack up wins, but I don't know. Kyler as quarterback doesn't really put too much fear in me. Good player, talented player. Is he going to win you anything? He hasn't so far. He
Right.
hasn't so far. So we'll see what happens. But the Rams are, like I said, one possession away from really surprising everyone and going to the NFC Championship game, hosting an NFC Championship game at that.
Right. Right.
But like I said, turnovers, they always play that. They rear their ugly head, and you cannot win in the NFL when you turn the ball over, especially more than the other team. Only 2 turnovers, which were both of those fumbles. However, that made the difference in the world. It is almost an even time of possession in that game. Yards per play for both teams, 5.7. They were exactly even.
Mm-hmm.
18 first down for the Rams, 16 for the Eagles. So you see what type of game it was, and really it's just one play. When they say it's a game of inches, that's what they mean, especially in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs. So shout out to the Rams for a great year, but you are in Cabo with the rest of the NFL, minus one of these teams we're about to mention next. We had the nightcap, the primetime game, the game everyone was waiting on. The game
Man.
Phil and myself were the most confident in. There was no
Wow.
way I saw that scenario ending. We're talking about the Ravens at the Bills. Listen, y'all heard the episode last week.
Man.
We went into the game, or excuse me, we went into that matchup and that preview thinking that there was no way the Bills had a chance. The Bills end up winning 27-25. Turnovers, doing too much. I'm not sure. I mean, you look at the opening drive of that game. Baltimore comes down 8 plays, 70
Yeah.
something yards, 77. I can't
Man.
remember. Looking
Yeah.
great, looking
What a
exactly what I
drive.
thought. And of course, Josh Allen came back and answered. You got to tip your hat to him. Good player. I don't know if he's going to win MVP. He's going to be runner up, if not the winner. So he's going to
Yep.
finish top 2. But I just thought that Baltimore had this game in their sights because they want to make sure they atone for last year's mistakes. They
Yeah.
had already beaten Buffalo this year, 35-10 at Baltimore. I think that was week 4. And
Yep. Week
once
4.
again, Buffalo just finds a way. They this game is going to be remembered for the Mark Andrews game, not positively, unfortunately, and it could possibly, not sure, not 100% sure their salary cap situation and how that works. I know he's due, I think, $16 million this upcoming year in the last year of his contract. Don't see
Mm-hmm.
that happening.
I don't either.
If that was his last game as a Ravens, after all the records he's set, like he's their career touchdown leader, big time fumble. I don't know who he thought he was when he tried to cut across field. Read the room. You're not a zigzag player. You're not a juke player. That's a Zay Flowers play you were trying to make. You are
Yeah.
not him. Go down. And of course, the 2-point conversion, which I don't put that on Mark. I put the drop on him,
Right.
but I don't put the game in his hands, right? Obviously, there are other things you could have done. Lamar had 2
Yeah.
turnovers.
Yeah.
It's things
And it
that he
shouldn't have
could have
came
done.
to that.
Shouldn't have come to that at all. Of course, for betting purposes, me having the Ravens -1 at the pick'em, I wanted him to get that 2-point conversion. I wanted it to go to
Mm-hmm.
overtime. But
Mm-hmm.
even then, there was still a lot of time left on that clock. Who
Right.
knows what could have happened? Buffalo could have come down. Tyler Bass could have kicked the field goal to end it either way. But like you said, Phil, it shouldn't have come down to that anyway. The playoff woes for Lamar Jackson continue. I believe he is now 3-5. He had 2 touchdowns with 1 interception and also a lost fumble. Derrick Henry, only 16 carries for 84 yards in a game that I thought he was going to get the ball a lot more. We were on our
Man.
live streams. Shout out to Corey. Corey and myself kept mentioning over and over, why are you not giving the ball? There was a drive in the first half where they had Ricard in the fullback and just went big, and they just go ahead and they were overpowering Buffalo. And for some reason, they would get away from it. They do play action and do too much. This is a very easy game to call, in my opinion. Like I'd have had a very
Mm-hmm.
simple script. Even when you watch Hard Knocks, you see Roquan Smith saying things like "Don't get cute, run the ball downhill."
Mm-hmm.
This is playoff
Mm-hmm.
football and below freezing temperature, and I don't know why you run away from it. But 176 yards for the Ravens rushing to 147 for the Bills. When you look at the actual attempts, 25 passing attempts for the Ravens, 30 rushing attempts. I think that there should have been less passing attempts. I think it should have been 19 or 20.
Yeah.
You need some more carries in there. Time of possession. The Bills had it for 31 minutes and 44 seconds. The Ravens 28-16. And once again, the theme of this episode, the theme of the entire weekends, 3 turnovers for Baltimore, 0 for the Bills. You
That was
hold
the
on to the ball when
difference.
you execute. That's going to be the difference between you winning and losing. Did you have anything to add to this game? Any thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, the two biggest takeaways for me was you touched on, Derrick Henry having 16 carries. How he doesn't have 20 carries in that game is mind-boggling to me. And even Lamar only having 6 carries was kind of surprising to me. But I thought Ravens defense played well enough to win that game. So I know they're extremely frustrated. You can see it oozing from Hard Knocks. So all in all, I thought the game delivered as far as excitement goes, but definitely wasn't the outcome that I expected. I was like you said, that was the game we were most confident in, and man, were we wrong. So it's really unfortunate, even though they are a division rival. I love Lamar, got nothing but respect for Lamar, and it is kind of, I think, unfair to put this one on him despite his playoff struggles. I thought he played well enough for his team to win. So
Two turnovers.
that part is a little frustrating. Yeah, you got to tighten up there for sure. But yeah, not looking forward to seeing Bills in Kansas City this coming weekend. I'll be honest. There aren't two more teams that I dislike more in the AFC, I don't think, and that's including the Ravens and the Steelers. Because I genuinely respect the Ravens and the Steelers, even though that's a division rival. Like I genuinely hate Kansas City and Buffalo. Like I can't stand them.
I don't hate Buffalo because I don't care enough about Buffalo. I know they can't beat us, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I
The
hate
Chiefs,
them because of the hype they get, like the praise that they get, and it's like they never have won. They finally making it to an AFC Championship game. Like,
yeah, the Chiefs, it's up for them always and forever. I don't. Did we talk about Travis Kelsey? His
nah,
comments last week, yeah, man,
he ain't even
he don't
worth
even
it.
believe that. He don't even believe that. Um, Big shout out to Justice Hill. 6 carries, 50 yards, 8.3 yards a carry. Justice Hill looked good on Sunday.
Yeah,
All right.
he did.
Look real tough, man. Real tough. I'm a big fan of Justice Hill and what he's doing, as long as he's not doing it against the Bengals. But yeah, he played well. Once again, Derrick Henry's on a 1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Andrews on the last year of his contract. There's going to be some changes going on in Baltimore. We'll see what that looks like. Not sure if we see Mark Andrews walk out the door, but when you have somebody like Isaiah Likely, it could be possible. 4 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. And Bateman's come of age. Bateman's actually one of the very reliable
Mm-hmm.
receiver for them. We'd love to see
And
what would have happened with Zay Flowers, but once again, with the weather, not sure how much of a difference he would have made. What were you going to say, Phil?
I was gonna say, I just said they actually have Derrick Henry under contract for another year. So
Do they? I feel like they do, but it's a ton of like crazy options, and the money's weird. So maybe it will be a little bit
they
different.
they they, they have a potential out, but I mean, he's under contract for. I mean, he
Yeah,
signed a
you keep
2-year,
him.
$16 million deal. So I don't see any reason why you wouldn't keep him. If anything, maybe you give him a little bump just because of the season that he had. But
A little toot.
yeah, I would expect him to be a Raven.
Yeah, that would make sense. He'd be crazy to let him walk out the door, especially after what they did offensively. One more time to kind of
Yeah.
figure it out. Obviously, we waited to record this episode. It would have been out earlier, but we wanted to kind of see Hard Knocks, given the events. We wanted to kind of see how the team reacted to that drop, and there wasn't really anything that was noted, other than people saying, "Hey, we
Yeah,
lost as a team," which is what you want to see. We get
right.
it. Um, but man, that's a frustrating way to lose a game. But it wasn't just that play. It never comes down to the final play. But that takes us
Yep.
to championship weekend, Phil. Let's just go ahead and get it out the way. You said you don't hate more team. You don't hate any two teams more than the Bills and the
I hate them.
Chiefs. That is who's playing in the night game or the afternoon game, however you want to call it. They're going to be the primetime matchup next Sunday. My
Mm-hmm.
birthday, the
Mm-hmm.
26th.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, we got to see one of these teams win on my birthday. So, with that being
That
said,
is that's that. Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like that either. You got a Bengals victory at home on your birthday when
Yeah,
things were still fun, and not just a Bengals victory, one of the best games
that
at
game was.
Paycor
It
history.
was for sure.
Um, but yeah, and I get this. No Bengals in the divisional or the championship game and the whole nine. But right now, Buffalo Bills at Kansas City Chiefs, AFC
Mm-hmm.
Championship game. Obviously, winner moves on to the Super Bowl. Chiefs are in. They have the third in a row in sights.
Yeah.
They right now are favored by 1.5 points against the Bills. Phil, I'm gonna keep it real simple. Can the Bills beat the Chiefs and go to the
I
Super Bowl?
I definitely think they can. If there was any season to do it, I think this is that season to do it. Even though Kansas City is 16-2, I do think they are still vulnerable. I mean, Houston had a chance to win that game. So I think Buffalo is gonna play them much better. But ultimately, I think Kansas City and those extra guys they got that wear black and white just gonna be a little too much to handle for the Bills. So I do think that the league and the powers that be want to see this potential three-peat just as much as Chiefs fans do for whatever reason. So I expect to I don't I expect the Chiefs to pull this one out. Um I mean, it looks like they opened at a 1.5 spread. It looks like Kansas City is favored by 2 now. I don't know if they'll cover the 2 or if it'll be a 1-point game, but I like the Chiefs to win.
Um, I think what you said was on the money. There's ever a year. This is it. I think it's worth noting that the Bills did beat Kansas City already this season, 30 to
Mhm.
21. I can't remember if that game was in Buffalo or if it was in Kansas City.
That game was
I feel like it was in
it
KC.
was in Buffalo. It was in Buffalo. They won 30 to 21.
Oh, it was in Buffalo. Okay, then
Yep,
got
that
you.
was week
Yeah,
11.
it's not, and it's kind of that's how I'm looking at this game, right? I'm not. I think the Bills can win. Can they beat Kansas City twice? Is the real question.
Right.
That's a tall task.
And
That's going to
Kansas
be
City at
difficult.
home in Arrowhead is gonna be loud.
Um, I made a career out of betting against Patrick Mahomes. I made a I made a career and I lost a lot of money doing so. I'm not gonna lie to
Man,
you.
you and me both.
Um, as much as I want to, I gotta take the Chiefs. I gotta take the Chiefs covering here. I just have to. This is history on the line. Some people say the NFL stands for the National Fraudulent League, which means that they might do things to push some of their stars up a little, put them on a pedestal a little bit more.
Mhm.
I just think that Andy Reid's gonna have a good game plan. I would, as much as I dislike both teams, I would love to see Buffalo. Man, I really don't know. I don't want to say that either. I don't want to see Buffalo. I don't want to hear Josh Allen talk for 2 weeks
I
going
don't
into
want to
the
hear
Super Bowl.
Allen talk or any more Mahomes talk. I'm sick of them.
Well, we're gonna get one of them, so it's kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, man. Maybe Bane comes and blows up the stadium like Dark Knight Rises, and there is no
Hey,
Super Bowl
hey, man, if Bang gonna blow
representative.
a place up, man, Buffalo not a bad one to pick.
Well, it's gonna be Arrowhead. It's gonna be Arrowhead. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right, you're right.
I don't know, man. I do think that the Chiefs are gonna end up winning. I think we're gonna see the Chiefs in another Super Bowl, and we're just gonna have to deal with that. I don't even want to fathom it, so we'll wait until we see what happens. But that's my prediction for this game. What's up?
Actually, now that I thought it out loud, I'm gonna wait till we talk about the next game and then I ask.
All right, cool. Don't forget it. I'll remind you as well. So
Yep.
speaking of, let's go ahead and talk about our next game. We have the NFC championship game, divisional game, as you mentioned earlier, Phil. The NFC
Hmm.
East. We have the Washington Commanders at the Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, it looks like the Commanders are +6 at the Eagles. We obviously had a game a few weeks back where Jalen Hurts got his concussion.
Mm-hmm.
Commanders came back and won that game with Kenny Pickett as the backup.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the Eagles won the original game in Washington, Landover, Maryland, to be specific. Um, this is for the Super Bowl as well. I don't know, Phil. I don't know, man. I know Philly should be winning this, and really because of their defense and their defensive front and
Mm-hmm.
their offensive line. That's what the strength is for me to Philly. If they're
Mm-hmm.
skilled players, if Jalen can get it together, and really, I don't know if they're. I think they're intentionally trying to run the ball and get Saquon all his touches.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they need to tighten up on the pass game, but that offensive line of Saquon, man, it's looking like a tough thing to stop. I
Yeah.
don't know if Commander's going to have enough horses. I will say the one thing that was convenient, they were in Detroit. It was cold in Detroit, but it was
Yeah.
warm in that dome. There is no dome in Philadelphia.
Not
You're
at
going to have to
all.
deal with those elements and those Philly fans and that Philly team. They live for it. I'm gonna have to take. I'm gonna have to take the Eagles -6. I think it just feels right. As much as I like Jaden Daniels and as calm and collected as I think he is, and I think he's going to be ready for the moment, I just think as a team, it's going to be tough for 4 quarters to go in there and really dominate that Eagles team.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's going to be a rematch, man. I think it's going to be a rematch of the Eagles and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
Okay. That was kind of what my question was going to be, if you bought into the logo conspiracy. I don't know if you saw the Super Bowl logo, but it's green and red, and it very much gives Philly, Kansas City vibes. So I was just curious, you know. But hey, you said it right there. You think we were gonna get that rematch? I wouldn't be mad at getting the rematch.
The issue
Um,
is the issue is I thought the Eagles team a couple years ago was much better than this team now,
I would agree,
and they
even though they
lost.
got Saquon. So, and this Chiefs team isn't as good either, though. So I'll
Not
I'll,
at
I'll
all.
say that also. But I know I picked against Washington last week. I'm not gonna do that again. I'm
Mm,
gonna say the Cinderella story continues, and I am gonna quote the Eagles defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. And the reason why I'm gonna go with Washington, why I'm gonna go with the Commanders, is because Jaden Daniels is only young by birth certificate, not by tape. Everything on the tape, this is a quarterback driven league. I know we talked about defense and run game in the playoffs, but the Commanders run the ball pretty good themselves. They ran the ball really well last week. Brian Robinson had, I think, 80 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. We talked about Jaden Daniels rushing for 51. So they got a pretty formidable run game themselves. Austin Eckler plays a part in that as well.
Chris
Um,
Rodriguez.
Yep, Chris Rodriguez, and I don't know, man. Jaden Daniels has it just hasn't been a challenge that he hasn't stepped up to and met this season. I mean, they've won 8 straight, I think. So, um, I I I definitely like Washington to cover the 6. I think it's gonna be a nail biter. I think it might come down to who has the ball last. But I'm gonna go with the underdog. I've been picking at least one upset every week. I'm not gonna change that this week. I'm gonna go with Washington covering the 6, and I'm gonna go with Washington winning straight up. I just think this is kind of like a team of destiny. It almost feels like that team when the Bengals kind of had they run, not necessarily the
Yeah,
team as a whole, but just the level of play that Burrow was at. Because he got injured in that rookie season, so that was kind of like a rookie season extended almost. And Jaden Daniels, man, he's just been lights out. And I had concerns about Washington's defense last week matching up against Detroit. And granted, they gave up 31 points, but they put up 40. So I think if they were able to kind of, I won't say stop Detroit, but kind of limit Detroit, if they can find a way to reduce those explosives, if they don't let Saquon rip those 60, 70 yard rushes like the Rams did, I think the Washington has a really good chance to win this game. If this game is close, if Philly lets them hang around, I really like Washington to pull it out. And the thing about it is, like, Washington has beat them before. Granted, it was with Pickett in there, but they've got that in their mental bank. Hey, we beat this team. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
will
I think
say
you
that.
can't discredit that. You can't discount that.
No, absolutely, man. Like once again, the quote Tomlin, Hard Knocks don't blink. I don't think Washington blinks. I think they're
Yeah.
in it. They're not an easy out. You're gonna have to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I do know for sure. I do know I will be rooting for an NFC team to win the Super Bowl.
Facts.
No ifs, ands, or buts about that. That is going to be for certain, whether it's the Commanders or the Eagles. And I'm going to be dreading watching this game on Sunday evening. But we do have another weekend of football. The last weekend with 2 games. Obviously, we're going into, like I said, this Sunday. No more Saturday football, whether it be college or NFL. That is over. College season's over. NFL is coming to a wrap. It's been fun so far.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, we have another great Sunday of football before we start talking about Super Bowl preview, Super Bowl matchups, and everything else, and the hoopla that goes on for those 2 weeks. So, with that being said, Phil, do you have anything else before we get out of here?
No, man, just happy birthday in advance. And
My dog, appreciate you, man.
hopefully we get some good ball. So
Hopefully, we get some good ball, man. We'll be back on
hopefully you get
Monday.
to watch. Hopefully you get to watch. I mean, I don't know what, I'm
I
sure you'll
don't
be
know.
celebrating you. So hopefully you'll get to tune in.
Nah, I'll be tuned in. That's one of the things I don't like, the fact that they're playing on my birthday, especially with the Bengals not playing, because I don't want to feel like I'm spending my entire birthday watching games, but I
For
want to
sure.
watch the game. So it's one of
Nah,
those
for
weird
sure.
things. But it's going to be a fun time celebrating this weekend. But with that being said, we appreciate all y'all out there. Be sure to tune into the games on Sunday. Make sure you catch us here. Probably late Monday night, we'll have an episode up for you. Until then, you already know what it is. Who they?
Who they?